right. Joining us for the first time on the show, I think, Walter, you haven't been on the Truth Hurts show, but you did do the first episode of, what is it, Icebreakers?
Oh, my gosh. You don't remember your show? Yeah, Icebreakers.
Well, so, Walter, we were going to do another season of Icebreakers, but unfortunately, global warming stopped the state of Minnesota from having reliable ice in the metro area.
Well, who knows? I mean, it's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, I know, right? My God, you're never in the clear until probably mid-May in this state. And even then, you get those big mounds of snow. So I didn't bring you on the show to talk about the Republican corruption because, when it comes to the Capitol, the Republicans are in the minority. And so you get to see firsthand, and this is what I always say at the beginning of our show, is that we're in the belly of the beast. Like if you're from Texas or you're from, South Dakota, Montana's probably a really good example, which is a red state, but it doesn't have to be red. It could go swing more Democrats. Amazing Democrats actually get elected in that state. And so this is what happens when Democrats take over the full form of government, the three positions. Well, let's be honest, they do have the three branches. They also have the judiciary, right? So this is what you get total control by the Democrat Party. And then they come, and the way I look at this, they come for the social agenda that they've always talked about in the radical elements, which we would call the Metro Democrat Party or the Metro Democrats. And so they're now tweaking with religious freedom. We talked about this a year ago when they tweaked the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Tell us a little bit more about the story. I watched you speaking in front of a church. I think it was just last Sunday on this issue. Tell us what's going on at the Capitol.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it takes a little bit more than an elevator pitch to get through the background. But basically, we have this Human Rights Act that was enacted in 1993 here in the state of Minnesota that defines protected classes, the kind that you would expect to see: race, color, creed, sexual orientation is one of them. And that one in particular, sexual orientation, was placed in a religious exemption to the Human Rights Act at the time. And what that means is that if you're a church, synagogue, mosque, what have you, faith-based organization like a Minnesota Teen Challenge or something along those lines, you are exempt from claims of discrimination and being sued based on sexual orientation. That's the way it was between 1993 and 2023. In 2023, last year, they changed the Human Rights Act to create a new protected class for gender identity. And previously, that had been included within the concept of sexual orientation. And so by separating those two, pulling them apart and having a separate category for gender identity, and then not placing that new protected class also in the religious exemption, effectively what they did was repeal the religious exemption for gender identity. That's basically what they did. They did it in a very clever way that people didn't notice at first. But once people did notice it, once religious groups caught on to what the effect of the change in law was, they worked behind the scenes with the Department of Human Rights and some of our members in the minority to try to quietly negotiate a fix. And the vehicle that they were going to use to try to achieve that was what's called a policy bill. So all these departments, there are changes in law in a budget year that have an impact upon the way that the departments work. And so there's usually some sort of cleanup because we are dealing with human beings. There's usually technical errors, typos, commas that are in the wrong place, chapter citations and whatnot. And so in the following year, they'll bring these policy bills or technical bills, agency bills, they call them. They're usually pretty sleepy, boring affairs that are non-controversial. Well, in this case, the controversy comes not from what's in this bill, this policy bill, but from what's not in it, which is a fix to this religious exemption issue from last year. That was something that has been lobbied for between last year and now. And so this is taking us back about a month when the agency bill dropped and it didn't have the fix in it. Alarm bells started ringing. That was kind of the first real strong indication that there was no intention to actually reverse this thing.
Walter, did you think,
Yep.
were you given the devil his due? Did you honestly think that they would care about this, the Democrats, they in this this circumstance, not Kozlowski. Did you think that they were going to fix this issue in good faith?
So I'm not the person to ask that question to because I was not privy to or included in all of these like quiet, good faith negotiations that were taking place during the interim. I really became keenly aware of this issue at the point in the story that I'm getting to, which is when Harry Niska brought his amendment. First of all, he filed a bill that would fix this, but then he also put that bill in the form of an amendment to bring to this policy bill in the House Judiciary Committee, and this is about 3 weeks or so, or about.
Let's pull this up real quick, Dawson.
Yep.
It's Dawson. You go pick up the article on Truth Hurts News. You guys at home could check this out. It's HF 3926, which I think Walter's getting it to, was an amendment on the floor yesterday, and the language basically in this is tweaking the Minnesota Human Rights Act to ensure that there's an exemption based on religious association that does also allow matters relating to, and it's underlined, so it says gender identity on there. Did you find that in the Truth Hurts News article, Dawson?
No.
Scroll, see the blue one there? Sorry, Walter. I want to make sure people get a chance to see it. Go back to Truth Hurts News.
Okay.
And then up on the top right, click on the one with the rainbow flag. There you go, that article. Scroll down to the bottom. You're going to see the final link. Nope, go back up a little bit. Right there, right above there. See HF 3926. And then click on as introduced. See, we got Dawson now. He kind of knows how to navigate bill pages. So this is what you're referring to right here.
Yeah, that's the bill form. And so this, in the form of an amendment, was brought to the House Judiciary Committee about 3 weeks back to try to get it into the Human Rights Department's policy bill. That was voted down along party lines. And then at that meeting, the Democrats went one by one and just berated the 5 different religious testifiers. I mean, we're talking about people representing Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Muslims. I mean, it just didn't matter. They've told us all, the entirety of traditional Abrahamic faith, that we are wrong, bigoted, harmful. We were compared to chattel slavers. Chair Becker Fenn in the Judiciary Committee, she said that this was not an oversight on her part, meaning that she intended to conspire against your First Amendment rights. It was just unbelievable, the display of disdain that these Democrats had towards your First Amendment religious liberties. And so it was supposed to be heard again in the Senate Judiciary Committee, I believe the following week. And it was quietly pulled from the agenda. And we took that, and I say we in the broadest corporate sense of the Republican ecosphere, we took that as a sign that they were feeling the pressure and that they were kind of going back to the whiteboard and were trying to negotiate something with their own members, because this is something that I believe is creating a divide within the Democratic caucuses.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is they can't do anything without throwing their own people under the bus.
I know. I was just thinking, let me guess, Hochschild or Kupek or Putnam are on that committee. I'm guessing one of those three's on that committee, and they didn't want him to have to vote on that thing.
But they did, and they all voted in lockstep with the Democrats,
and
with
that's
the party.
And that's the most amazing thing is it's like you have rural Democrats, and we saw this during the lockdown orders. They will get in line. And you know that these people don't really believe it, but they are just being run by the Metro Democrats who are radicalized. I mean, it is insane what these guys believe in. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but they had the Senate committee. They voted in. Continue on the story.
Right. So they pulled it quietly one week, and then they reintroduced it the following week, and then they all did the same thing. Like they doubled down on the stupid and voted against restoring your First Amendment rights. And at that point, there's kind of this exasperation. Now, you had asked me earlier, did I ever really think that in good faith they were going to fix this? Personally, no. However, the broader coalition of faith groups and organizations that were working on this issue, I think people want to believe that the folks who are in charge are fundamentally good, decent people who will listen to reason.
Okay.
You can call that. Yep. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, call it naive. That's what you're going to say, right? And unfortunately,
Yeah.
this is both a problem but a good virtue of people in Minnesota is we tend to trust and believe in our fellow Minnesotan, and that usually serves us well inside of our church and inside of our community. You know, I'm a coach for kids sports, and there's just a general trust you can have, and you can operate that way. But this is politics, baby. You cannot trust these people at all. They have hidden agendas. And so let's do this, Walter. By the way, the church you were talking to, was that the Sunday?
It was this past Sunday. It was Bridgeview Church in Big Lake, Pastor Steve Royalty.
Perfect. Yeah. It's on your Twitter. Well worth going to check that out. Dawson, go back to our article. What you started out the conversation with him was, I'm going to say something to you. And you kind of, I could see you guys walking the fine line of, well, this is a church. We shouldn't get too political, but maybe that's another problem that we're having on the right. But I'm going to say, and I think you said something like, I'm going to say something and you're going to almost not believe me, but I guarantee it's true. Okay, so this is the angle we took on our article today at Truth Hurts News. Minnesota Democrats attack religious freedom, make pedophilia a sexual orientation human rights act. Now, I wanted to come back to this because we reported on this a year ago, and this is very important for people to understand because, quite frankly, people don't know this is true. But it's just amazing how it comes full circle because the exact issue you're dealing with goes right back to the same provision in what we called the Gun Control and Pedophilia Omnibus Bill. This was passed in a bill that had both a Change the Human Rights Act and gun control, the red flag gun seizures and universal background checks. Sorry, we're getting interrupted by a rumble rag.
$5, Razzle says, for VIP guest fees like Walter today.
Well, we can't pay a legislator, Razzle Dazzle, but we'll use those funds for the next evening show and beer fund. We'll do that. Well, or we'll give it to Dawson wants it.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I do.
But that, I don't know, Walter. Can we give you a beer if you're in the studio for one of those shows? I don't know. By the way, Andy Parrish is in the comment section. He goes, Walter looks great. How much weight has he lost?
Oh, he must have not seen me in quite some time because it's been a while since I lost any weight.
Well,
But, yeah.
recognition, right? You look great,
Yeah.
Walter. You do look good.
Thanks.
Okay, so scroll back down on this page, Dawson. This is a so this passed. Obviously, Walter, you spoke out about this on the House floor. I think we shared that. This is the part of the Minnesota Human Rights Act called sexual orientation, and so they put sexual orientation quotations, and they actually cross out all the old language of it. Now, in that, the last sentence is, sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. They completely removed that. They didn't add that. So what was added is, or what's new in law is, to whom someone is or is perceived of as being emotionally, physically, or sexually attracted to based on sex or gender identity. The word you just talked about right now, which is at the core of this issue. A person may be attracted to men, women, both, neither, or to people who are gender queer, androgynous, or have other gender identities. And then they go on in the next subdivision to actually define gender identity. I didn't watch the whole. I ran out of time watching the whole thing. Did you even bring that up to the church? Like, do people even believe the Democrats did this? Which I think you mentioned Harry Niska earlier. He literally got an amendment passed by the Minnesota House to put that back into the bill, and the Democrats removed it before final passage.
Yes, it's astounding. And the answer to your question is no, we didn't have time to go back and cover that news from last year. But yes, that is another shocking thing that, as you say, it's hard to get people to believe and accept that this is what is happening. This is what is going on in Minnesota with our laws. But as you point to the language, in fact, you still got it up on the screen there. It's so essential to understand what it is that they did by removing that clause that said sexual orientation does not include an adult's sexual attachment to a child. That included by default pedophilia into the definition of sexual orientation, because the definition of sexual orientation, it's right there, is someone who is perceived or is actually emotionally, physically, or sexually attracted to someone based on blah, blah, blah. Well, someone, or the word person, as it previously was, that's inclusive of children. There's no age limiter on that. So if you take out that clause that says we're not talking about kids, then we are talking about kids. Like,
okay.
It's just that simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what then the Minnesota Human Rights Act does, and we don't have this on the screen. You could get rid of the screen here, Dawson. Then it is illegal. It's against the law. No one, I think, gets thrown into prison yet, right? Let's just wait another 5-10 years. That's where they're going with this. Look at Canada. But what happens is you could be criminally liable if you discriminate based on someone's attachment to children. And in the Minnesota Human Rights Act, it says employers, government institutions, schools can't. So the whole issue here to me, and I love how you guys are bringing this up on the gender identity part, it's even more concerning to me that was okay. Now, it's still against the law to act on pedophilia, okay? And I'm maybe I'm naive. I don't think there's a big constituency trying to push a change to that in the next 10 years. But maybe, I would never guess this was an issue 10 years ago. But certainly an open attachment or attractiveness to children, which is disgusting and should be cast in a way where no one stands up for that value. That is I shouldn't even say value. That thinking, that belief, that system of desires, no one should be standing up for that. And yet they do. They take it out of the law. And I don't even know what kind of constituency was standing up for it. Why would they even go after that? Why not specify so apparently in the law that isn't a thing? Okay, getting back to your issue, the gender identity. Where does this come into play then? What are we fearful of, that a transgender pastor, which is probably against the teachings of a certain church, is going to have to be hired? A teacher at a private institution has to be hired. You can't discriminate. Where does this come into play?
Yeah, it comes to play in two forms. So first of all, yes, that's actually happening right now. There is a case, an active open complaint at the Department of Human Rights involving, as I understand it, a religious school over an issue of hiring. That's all I know about it. I'm not privy to the details, but it's an active complaint, which means that the department has received it and is doing something with it. If they didn't see any merit in it, then they would dismiss it. The fact that they haven't dismissed it means they do see merit in it, and they are investigating it and looking into it. So that's one thing that actually affirmatively is happening. But I think the broader issue here, and this was the first question asked by the media when we had a press conference on this yesterday, was, well, are there any examples of this actually harming churches? Which is the stupidest question you could have possibly asked. Yes, when you change the law to create a vulnerability for an organization to be sued untold millions of dollars by literally anybody who walks through the door with a ridiculous claim, yes, that is a harm. The mere existence of that legal vulnerability is unto itself a harm. And that's where we find ourselves, is you have churches like the church I attend. It's paycheck to paycheck, man. It's hand to mouth. We're keeping the lights on. We're keeping the operation going. On an ongoing basis. Our budget is always slim, and we're always working hard to meet it. Somebody comes and sues our church, that's the end of the church, right? We're not going to have the money to pursue that unless the help comes from outside. And so what this does is it creates an environment that chills free speech, chills hiring decisions, places people in a situation where they're going to self-censor in order to avoid the wrath of the activists. Think of the cake baking case applied to hiring decisions in churches.
Exactly. All right. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you sandwiched this between two meetings, so thank you so much for tuning in or to joining us, and for everyone that's tuning in. We're definitely going to have you back, and I want to stay on top of this. Obviously, there's still, a month and a half left of the legislative session, roughly a little over a month and a half. So this will probably get stuck in an omnibus bill, a policy bill, as you said, and this will be a big showdown. Before we let you go, Walter, I heard you are running for governor. Is this true?
I think they want it so badly. The left, the Democrats, the media, they want it so badly because they probably have 5 people in a room somewhere busily doing opposition research, like bookmarking all of my tweets and videos and what have you. They would love for that to happen. I don't know that I'm going to make it that easy for them in 26. So
you're a white supremacist and a far right extremist. There's just no way we could have you. It would ruin the party. Well, it's good having you on the show, and too bad we weren't able to do another season of Icebreakers. I call it Ice Fishing Diaries, and then Dawson had the idea we should call it Icebreakers after I already done the intro. So go ahead.
We have a $10 Rumble rant from failed candidate Walter. Thank you for all your efforts.
There you go. I really wonder who failed candidate is.
JL Jazz says Walter Hudson for governor. Do it.
Oh, there you go. You got 1 vote. I think
There
you
you
probably
go.
have more than that.
Billy 22, keep up the fight, Walter. Razzle Dazzle says, thanks, Walter. Try to get Harry on as well. He articulated the amendment so well in committee.
And then Razzle Dazzle says Walter for governor.
Yep.
By the way, where was that rumor? Was that like a Reform article? Like he has to
That
be running for
was-
governor.
that, as I understand it, that was like what's called the morning take, where they have like a summary of news from the previous day. And that was after I got up and left a committee hearing in public safety because I couldn't stand Aisha Gomez lying out of both sides of her mouth about supporting law enforcement when she so clearly does not. And so, of course, they're not going to actually write about the content of what we were talking about. They're going to write about, my behavior. We have such a joke media in this state. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's very believable to us. But that's what gives us a marketplace, right? If they were doing a good job, we wouldn't have a show.
That's exactly what I say. I say, because I get accused of, you're just looking for viral moments. You know how you can shut me up? Press, do your job.
Yeah.
Democrats, stop violating rights. And there'll be no market for what I do.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much, Walter, and keep fighting the good fight up there.
Will do. Thanks.